Among the sensational claims in Prince Harry's new book are allegations that Prince William physically attacked him. Harry says he grabbed me by the collar, ripping my necklace, and he knocked me to the floor. I landed up on the dog bowl, which cracked under my back, the pieces cutting into me. I lay there for a moment, dazed, then got to my feet and told him, "Get out."
Also in the book, he details a conversation he had with his mother's friend and psychic, Sally Morgan, where he asked about his mother's death. He wrote in the book that she told him, quote, "You're living the life she couldn't. You're living the life she wanted for you."
Well, Sally Morgan joins us now. Katie is still here. And also we've got psychologist Honey Lancaster-James down the line. Sally.
Hello.
Wow, great to have you with us. What are your thoughts? Dear Harry.
Well, where do we start? Yeah, I mean, well, to me, he is Dear Harry. I know that, you know, he's taking an awful lot of stick at the moment, but it's his way of grieving, I think, as well. I think that he's grieving. You've got to remember, I know him or spoke to him because of his grief.
Yes.
And, yeah, I think that it's all of this, all of his behaviour. It all traces back to how they were not allowed, and I'm including William here.
Yes.
They were not allowed to grieve in the way that they wanted to for their mother.
So I was fascinated to learn that Harry contacted you and he appeared in the conversation he had with you to be troubled about whether or not his mother's death was really an accident. Is that correct?
Well, that was the first thing he said to me.
What did he say?
The first thing was, "Hello, how are you?" And remembering a time that we'd been to, met. And then he said, "I really need to know, what do you think about my mother's death?" And I just said to him, I was a bit shocked, and I thought, well, it's not my place to give him my thoughts.
Yeah.
He's asking me as a medium, as a psychic. And I said, you need to speak to your aunt, Sarah McCorkindale.
So that was Lady Diana's sister.
That's right.
Now, I thought that was incredibly interesting because this is new to me. So you advised Prince Harry to speak to Princess Diana's sister about what really happened.
Yeah, because I thought he needs to get the information from her. She was the one that said to me 4 days after the funeral when she rang me at home, because I used to see her on a regular basis, at least 3 times a week.
Right.
She was, most of the time, the Princess of Wales lady-in-waiting. She would go on, and so she would travel down from Norfolk. I lived just off the A3 at the time. She would pop into me, then pop into me on the way back to Norfolk.
Right.
So, she rang me. We were very...
4 days after the funeral,
and I was really shocked, because the first thing I said to him when I picked up the phone, what are you doing ringing me? You know, you're grieving. Yeah. And she said, "Oh, Sally, there's a few things I just wanted to say to you." And she wanted to talk about a tape that, because every single reading is taped.
Right.
They took the tapes.
Yes.
And there was a tape that she was really interested in that they had listened to on the train on the way to Altrop.
Yes.
And so she spoke about that. And then she said to me, "What do you think happened?" And I said, "Well, it was an accident, wasn't it?"
So just to be clear, then, Princess Diana's own sister, 4 days after the funeral, was questioning whether or not Princess Diana's death was truly an accident. Is that correct?
Well, that's how, you see, I'm telling you what she said to me. We can make of it. I'm not saying you're not right, but when she said to me, will you promise me that you will always say her death was an accident? And I went, well, it was, wasn't it? And you know, why would she say that to me?
Let's go to Honey. Honey, good evening. Thanks for joining us. So you've heard these extraordinary revelations, these bombshell claims from Prince Harry in this book. I mean, what are your thoughts about the state of mind of Prince Harry? How difficult will it be for him to try and seek some form of reconciliation that he talks about, given what he's done?
Well, the truth is, I mean, I wouldn't like to comment on what his state of mind is at the moment. He's not my client. If he was my client, I have to say I wouldn't be giving any interviews at all. I'd be keeping that confidential. But what I can say, I mean, certainly the revelations of what has been printed in this new book have been coming thick and fast today. I mean, my phone has been off the hook. Everybody is talking about some of these allegations, some of the things that have been published. And so I think if we sort of reflect on those claims, I mean, it's my specialist area to support public figures. That's the area that I generally work in. My company, Onset Welfare, we work with production companies around the world. We specialise in supporting people who live their lives or work in the public eye. And what I see from people that we've worked with over the years, when they do a tell-all book, when they go live to the world with some big revelation, is often an individual. I mean, we work very much with the real life person. We try to get things from the horse's mouth. And what I often see is that there's usually been a very long time before this big moment, this big crescendo where it all comes out, where this person has privately struggled to hold a lid on perhaps some things that they've desperately wanted to talk about, that advisors have said they shouldn't, or people have said to them that, you should keep this all behind closed doors. So that's the only thing I can think, really.
He will have known the impact of these revelations. How will he be feeling now? It's going to be all over the world's newspapers for days and weeks. I mean, how will they, as a couple, how will they cope with this? What will be the impact on them?
Well, one thing I'd like to think is that they have support. And one thing that Harry and Meghan have been public about is that they do have mental health support. I think Harry has talked about that in his book as well, how he has a therapist or therapists, some people providing them with support. And I really hope that that is robust and confidential.
There is a weird discrepancy, though, isn't there, Honey? In the book, he talks about this extraordinary showdown with William, in which became physical. William allegedly knocked him to the ground, and the first person Harry says he called was his therapist, at the same time as having previously suggested that Meghan wasn't able to get a therapist because that wasn't the done thing in the royal family. How are we to reconcile these two conflicting narratives from him?
Well, again, from my understanding about Meghan's comments about that was that at a particular time she wanted to go somewhere and get help. She says that she wasn't permitted to do that. I think that is different. But what I think Harry's done there is actually something that, in some sense, psychologically, was probably a sensible thing to do if that's what he did. Because at a time when your emotions are running high, it actually can be much more helpful to turn to a professional for support than to your close family member, because they are involved and they will have feelings about it as well, and they'll be sort of too close to the issue. So in that sense, I would say anyone else out there, anyone watching actually, who has been through major sources of conflict in their own family lives. Let's face it, this is a very common thing. I would say it is helpful.
As you say, Honey, he is going to need, and Meghan are going to need, a lot of support. Thank you so much, Honey, indeed. Sally, final thoughts, I mean, just on this extraordinary day.
Completely extraordinary. I don't think there'll ever be a reconciliation with the brothers. It's never going to happen. I mean, and I think that it's so sad, because one of the things that he said to me when I had that conversation, we spoke for a long, long time. He wanted to know how his brother, he said, my bruv, how will my bruv be, knowing that William was, the heir to the throne.
This is the tragedy of it, isn't it? That he's probably permanently destroyed the closest relationship
completely
that the pair of them had.
Yeah. And I think any form of reconciliation will be literally for the public eye, for just how it looks. I don't think it's going to have any depth to it.
I mean, I very much respect what Honey had to say there, but I can't help feeling that too much therapy has been part of the problem here. This is a young man who's been encouraged to share his feelings, to explore them all, and actually hasn't known the limits of keeping that within the confines of the consultation room.
I mean, just some of this stuff, frankly, I don't think most of us want to hear. There's just so much...
I don't want to know about him losing his virginity.
All this sort of very personal detail.
Taking the stardust off everything.
Is there any prospect that actually... That'll in some way endear him to people?
Yeah, no, I don't want to think... No one wants to think of him as being used like a stallion.
Are we being a bit old? I mean...
Oh, you speak for yourself. Thank you. You're a bit old. Dear, oh dear.
Dear, oh dear.